Hey, how you doing? Brian Cain, mental performance coach here, host of the Mental Performance Mastery podcast. And today, my guest is PBA bowling superstar AJ Johnson. AJ most recently won a PBA Tour title in Sweden, and we go all the way back to 2018 when he was a member of the Team USA bowling team. So AJ, in this podcast, is going to unpack the mental performance strategies that he uses to be one of the most competitive and successful bowlers in the world, and the strategies that he really doubled down on to help him to win his first PBA Tour title. AJ is going to talk about the importance of using fear as fuel, of creating routines pre-competition, post-competition, and in competition. He's going to talk about getting out of a comparison mindset and into a competitor's mindset. He's going to talk about the importance of mental imagery, of having physical triggers to help you flip the switch, whether it be when you put your jersey on or at the end of the day, when you shower well. He's going to discuss 3 keys to keeping it simple, his one-word focus, and the importance of working with a mental performance coach if you want to be the best version of yourself. Let's join AJ Johnson, PBA Tour winner, on the Mental Performance Mastery podcast. Hey, how you doing? Brian Cain here with the Mental Performance Mastery podcast. And man, could not be more fired up to bring my friend and PBA tournament bowling champion, AJ Johnson, onto the podcast to talk about mental performance from one of the top bowlers in the world. AJ and I go back to when we first met with Team USA Bowling in 2018. And just recently in 2023, he won his first PBA Tour title at the Lucky Larson Masters event over in Sweden. AJ Johnson, man, this is a long time coming, brother. Congratulations to you. And thank you for joining us on the Mental Performance Mastery podcast.
No, thank you, man. This has been absolutely crazy. It's been one hell of a journey. There's been so many years of hard work and time put into this to get to this point. And, you know, to be quite honest, I don't know that I would be sitting here being able to talk about this had I not made the trip out to you in March of this year to get things back on the right track. I've been through a lot of great times with bowling, and I've been in a lot of dark and down times, and being a part of being on tour for so long and doing this for 7 full seasons, 8 years, whatever it is, you know, things get at you, and you try to figure out the best way to deal with that and navigate that and find ways to continue to push through it and stay on the path. And a lot of what I've learned and a lot of what I've seen is that, you know, you have your own timeline. Your timeline is not somebody else's timeline. Just because somebody else is doing something, you know, different or has more doesn't mean that yours isn't coming. And we talked a lot about that part of it, the comparison part, you know, when I came out to see you, because a lot of that got to me. And just you kind of flipping the script for me to get back on the right path was 100% what I needed. And like I said, I don't know that I'm sitting here talking about that or talking about this tournament had I not done that.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, AJ, right? Comparison when you're a professional athlete and a Dragon Slayer, whether it's on the PBA Tour or the PGA Tour, in the UFC or Major League Baseball, so many professional athletes, because you get assessed and evaluated, right? It's really easy to fall into the comparison trap, where comparison is the thief of all joy. And what we have to do is shift more into competitive focus, into controlling what I can control, into dialing in my process. And, you know, you had 8 years, I think it was, right, on tour before you won your first PBA title, and you're one of the top guys in the world bowling on Team USA for a large part of your career. What do you feel like were some of the major adjustments that you had to make to go from competing for titles to winning a title, or was it just a matter of time? What do you think?
You know, I think a lot of the, you know, matter of time, that, you know, that was a big part of it. I made a lot of TV shows. I've put myself in a lot of positions and, you know, have come up short. And, you know, it was just that you just keep pounding the rock, you keep knocking on the door, and that door is going to break open. And then a lot of it too was just getting to where I believe that I deserve that. And believing that, you know, there's no reason why anyone else should have what I have coming. You know what I mean? It's, and it was the conversations that we had about just competing to a standard. I always thought that I was, trying to compete to the level of some of the other guys that were winning so many times in majors in our sport. But I was trying to develop a standard of myself that I needed to compete to and also beat throughout the year. And we figured that out when I was out there. And I did a lot of that throughout the year, because we would have conversations where I'm like, I wasn't quite sure about this, and, this didn't feel right. And then we look at numbers and scores, and you're like, well, you're beating everything that you had before. So you're competing to another level of a standard that you didn't have before. The other part of it was huge on process. Having routines and a process of everything that I do throughout the day, especially leading up to competition. And then also in the heat of competition, having something to go to. We worked on that when I came and saw you, and now I can tell you exactly what that whole process looks like without even doing it for the last, couple of weeks since I've been home. And that was a big part, because now when things start to go haywire, they, start to get a little testy, I have something to go to. I have a way to let all that go. And I see a lot of what I do with bowling, I see a lot of with starting pitchers in the majors, watching guys, like Corbin Burns, and seeing how they kind of go about their business. I can relate to when we're bowling, because we're kind of on an island just like they are. We have to have those things in ourselves to go to and have that process to stick to in order to get through, whatever adversity that we're facing in that time. And then, at the end of it too, I told a couple of people when I've talked about being in that moment, I don't know that I've ever said it out loud to myself. And this time I did. And I was sitting bowling in that final match, and I had said to myself, you know what? You've been in this moment before, and you've so quote unquote failed so many times. Why are you afraid of failing now? Just go get it. There's no reason for it. So I've never said that out loud. And because I think it was that I was always afraid of failing. I hate failing. It's I've been an athlete my entire life, and it's just one of those things ingrained in you. But I've always gotten to a point at every level, whether it be youth, high school, college, Team USA, regionally, across the world. I've always gotten to a level where I've been the guy on top. And I think that was a part of it, being afraid of failing. And now I finally had sitting there bowling the title match. And I tell myself, why are you afraid of failing? You've done it so many times. What are you going to do? The same thing? Or are you going to go after it? And I think bringing that together with all the stuff that I talked about with you, and having those things to go to, having the process and the just the way the better preparation has been 100% big for me and going forward.
And you talk about like being able to let go of the outcome, right? Like, hey, you've been in this situation and failed before, and your life's great. You're going to be a dad. You got all these great things going on, right? And you've been in this situation and failed before, and you're still living your life, but you want to go get the outcome. And I think when you look at giving up expectation of my life will be better when I win, or I get set outcome, and get into execution of your process, execution of your routine. And you talked about earlier, like a routine of what I do before competing, while I'm competing, and then how I evaluate after I compete. Talk to us, if you would, in some detail, AJ, about like your pre-bowling routine, when you say you would enter that hourglass, or when that starts for you in the hotel, and then what it looks like even at the settee between shots, what it looks like over the ball return between shots, and how you would even release and have something to go to when things get a little bit off the rails or get squirrely. Take us through that whole day of what that routine looks like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything for me kind of starts in the morning with, morning routine. So I always like to set out, whatever it is that I'm going to wear that day, the night before. The jersey I'm going to wear, the pants, belt, socks, compression shorts, the undershirt, everything. My pullover that I wear, like everything gets set out the day before. I get up, I go through my morning routine of getting ready. And then if I have some things that I need to do, for my body to get ready to go, before I even get to the bowling center, whether that's, doing some mobility work, doing some different core things just to get my body activated, because throughout the year we go through some series of injuries, and I had some couple of things that just didn't feel right. And my physio guy gave me some stuff to do before I left. So there are some things that those things get done before I left. And then I get, once the jersey goes on for me, that's kind of like me going into competition mode. So once the jersey's on, then everything I do up until I'm done wearing that, or I go to take that off, I'm all in on everything that I need to do that day for competing. And then I get to the bowling center. I get bowling balls ready. I get loose, even, a little more stretched out before, get everything taped up and ready to go. And then in competition, my process is I brush my shoe off, and I wipe my heel. When I wipe my heel, I wipe it in a way so that I can feel the ridges of my heel to make sure that I'm present and that I am where my feet are. And then once I do that, I hit my rosin so that I can see the rosin come out of the bag, and I watch it come out. And then I go to the ball return. I pick up my chamois. I wipe the oil off my ball. I set it down, and I put my hand over the air and really feel it. And I close my eyes. I take a deep breath. Nothing ever fast paced, just because you don't want to rush anything. And when things get crazy, it does get rushed a little bit. Or when I'm not bowling so great. But when things are going good, it's a slow breath, open my eyes, I step on the approach, and then I go. And then I just evaluate what happens after that shot. Whether I have to pick up a spare, I come back, kind of evaluate what went on. If I need to do something different, I make the spare come back and just kind of sit there, make an adjustment. Or if it struck, if I need to just continue doing what I'm doing, then I come back and I start that process over again for the next frame. And when I start every frame, my first ball, the routine is the exact same. Now when we, shoot at spares, obviously when we come back, I'll either grab a rosin if I need to, hit something and throw it down to kind of let it go if something bad happened before I shoot the spare, or I come back, take a breath, pick up my spare ball, and then shoot the spare and move on to the next frame and try to make that next frame better. Once the day is over, the block, the qualifying round, or whatever that round, or TV show, anything that I'm competing in that day, once that's over with, I'll kind of go through, evaluate what happened, and see if there's areas that I can improve on. If there's, if I could have made better bowling ball choices, if I could have, gotten myself out of that red light that we've talked about, if I got into that a little bit more frequently, if I can get myself out of that better to get into a better frame of mind going into the next games or frames, even when things start to snowball, evaluate if there's, a different game plan that I need to go about for the next day to make it better. And then once I fully kind of assess that, once I take my jersey off and everything and I shower, then I've already forgotten about it. We talked about that of, really showering well and getting rid of whatever that happened, whether may it be good or bad. Once that day is over, it's over. And then it's time to get ready to and set out for the next one.
Man, AJ Johnson, there's a ton to unpack there. And one of the things I want to unpack is that t-shirt that you got underneath. What are you wearing right there? Dominate the Day t-shirt. I just noticed that, man. Let's go. He's got the Dominate the Day tee. Yeah, I love that. AJ, you talked about a lot there, right there, man. Your pre-competition, your in competition, post-competition. What I want people listening to this podcast to take away is not exactly what it is you're doing, but how intentional you are with what you're doing, and how intentional the athletes listening to this podcast, who also want to be the best in the world at what they do, as you do, and compete for that at the highest level, the intention of the things you're doing. And you talked about feeling the heel, right, of your shoe to be present. And, as we talk to baseball hitters, about digging into the box and feeling the dirt under your feet, or swiping the rubber to feel that under your feet, and you mentioned Corbin Burns, who I know you've gone to see pitch a bunch and to really kind of study like his routines and his breathing. So one of the things he'll talk about in the podcast we do with him is the importance of like when he has a red light and needs to release, putting the glove under the arm, rubbing the ball, looking at a focal point, taking a breath. So there's a lot we want to unpack here, but talk about the importance of feeling the heel and what that does to help you stay present.
Yeah, that was big for us when we discussed that. And I never really thought of it in any other way other than me just kind of wiping away anything that got on my heel to make sure it was clean when I got up to throw a shot. And really what that kind of brought to my attention was that me feeling that, and then also feeling the air and everything, made me hone in and aware of where my feet are and staying present and only focusing on that frame, that shot, and that moment of time, not worrying about, the 260 game I bowled before and like, all right, now I just need to do that again. Or if I bowled a 180 or, the last frame I pocket 710 or 2810 or something like that, it brings me back into just focusing on what's important now. And that's just making that shot even better than what the one was before or whatever. Just it's really dialing in on that one shot, that frame. And by making myself present makes me do that even more. Being able to close my eyes, taking that breath, feeling the air in all parts of that. It's bringing me into where I'm at in that moment in time and nowhere else.
And you talked about also the rosin and hitting the rosin on your hand, right? And then throwing the rosin sometimes as a release, or dropping the rosin and watching the smoke come out. No different than, I'll give a couple examples that people maybe have seen. The movie Gladiator, when Russell Crowe bends down and picks up the dirt before he starts the battle, and lets the dirt fall to the ground. He feels the dirt go through his hands, right? It's Hollywood. Reality, LeBron James before a game, the baby powder or whatever it is on his hands, and throws it up in the air, right? And causes the smoke cloud, part of his routine. You look at, remember David Price on a podcast that we had where he talked about at Vanderbilt, one of the things he used to do in college, right, was he'd put the rosin on his glove arm. He'd throw the rosin down, watch the smoke come up and go down. He's making his major league debut at Yankee Stadium, pitching against Tampa, coming out of the bullpen in like the 7th inning. He's got so much adrenaline going through his system that he can't throw the ball below the catcher's mask in the bullpen. So what's he do? He has something to go to, like you're talking about. Same thing, rosin bag. He gets off the back of the mound, grabs a rosin bag, puts it on his arm, looks at the top of the flagpole, a focal point, takes a breath, throws the rosin, watches the smoke come up, proceeds to go out and punch out like 7 of the 9 batters that he faces in his major league debut, right? So that having something to go to, the rosin, wiping the oil off of your ball with your chamois. Talk about the importance, AJ, just of those physical triggers, feeling the heel, the rosin, wiping the ball. You talked about when you put your jersey on, that flips the switch into bowler. When you shower at the end of the day, that flips the switch from bowler back to person, to dad. You just gave 5, literally. I mean, if you take nothing else out of this podcast, AJ just gave you 5 physical triggers that he uses to associate with the mental game. Talk about the importance of intentionally setting those triggers for yourself.
That I think you really hit it. I mean, I don't think there is anything more important than, when being an athlete and having those things that you intentionally set out to do every single time, no matter what, of competing. I don't care if I'm going and bowling a sweeper, in my local bowling center, or I'm going and bowling the US Open. My intention and what I am setting myself out to do, and my process and what I go about is always the same. A couple of my coaches have told me, they're like, we just don't understand. Like, you just do these things like it's the back of your hand. I'm bowling league and I'm brushing my shoe, wiping my heel, chamois, the air. I'm doing everything the same, and sometimes not even just thinking about it. And it's because I do it every single time, no matter what. Because as a high level athlete, you have to have those things that's intentional. You have to have those things that separates yourself, because, like you said, Kaner, preparation is separation. And if you want to separate yourself from being just okay and good to great, You have to have the preparation. You have to have the intention of all those things. I could speak on it, just from experience when we set out those things and we physically wrote down and we put down every single thing that we wanted to go about and that I had to be intentional about doing every time that I would go to a tournament. I immediately started seeing results, and it was just because I was more prepared for myself and I was allowing myself to just compete, and I wasn't worried about all the other things and the garbage that was going on before, because it was bad before I came and saw you. It was really bad. And just putting my mind into basically just preparing myself and just trying to get 1% better every single day, and not trying to win the tournament or win the whatever it was in ball one of the tournament. You can't do that. And I feel like before I was putting so much pressure on myself and putting so much emphasis on, like, I have to get it now. I have to get it now. And it's not that way. And by doing all of the preparation and being intentional about my process and feeling where my feet are and being present in everything, has really made a change in that. And I mean, like I said, everything I go and do now, whenever it's involved in bowling, even when I go play golf, I'm finding myself doing the same things, and I'm just playing for fun with my buddies. I'm trying to do all those things because I know how important it is in my career.
Well, and you're a competitor who wants to win. It doesn't matter if it's bowling, golf, or damn tiddlywinks, right? You want to win. I mean, I did an interview earlier this week. Someone was calling me about an article they were writing about you, and they'd say, "What was one word you describe AJ Johnson?" And I said, "Well, I can't do it in one, but it would be two: energy and competitor." And that's what I think he brings to the table. And they said, well, when going back to 2018, Team USA, Arlington, Texas, the Team USA Bowling Center right next to kind of Six Flags and where the Rangers ballpark is, fantastic place. If there's any bowling fans listening to this, which I'm sure there will be, and you're in that area, check it out. It's amazing. And AJ, we started there, and I think we got to work together with Team USA maybe 3 times before you decided to try to come out here and get some time one-on-one. Talk about the difference between you in that room as a team setting versus maybe coming out to Arizona to the house and us being able to get after it one-on-one, because I know there's a lot of baseball players that I start with when they're in college at various programs I work with, Texas A&M or East Carolina or wherever. And then when, we get together they're in professional baseball and they come to the house, they're like, man, this is way different. I'm like, well, yeah, because it's one-on-one, not 50-on-1. So talk about your difference in the experience between, say, Team USA, where there's 12, 15 guys in a room, and versus coming here one-on-one.
Yeah. I first and foremost, I want to say, like, when you came out and worked with a team, I immediately clicked with you and everything that you were teaching and how you were going about everything. And so I was already in tune, from the 30 seconds from getting started. And with a team, there's a lot of information and you're trying to cover a lot of areas so that all the players can kind of take things from all the parts on what they grasp on.
Yeah.
When I work with you one-on-one, we're diving in on, what it is that I'm feeling and what I'm going through and what I need to fix and what needs to happen going forward for me personally, that, there's not a ton of information being grabbed from. It's personal. It's, we're going to get to the heart of it. We're going to figure out what's going on, and we're going to get rid of it or make it everything better. And so I think that was a big part of it. Like I needed to have that, because doing so much in, what trying to cover with a whole team and trying to give information to everybody to take everything from that, or the one thing that they grasp onto, is totally different than just dialing in on the thing that you need individually and personally. And that was big for me, because I had never really done that. And it took a lot for me to finally sit down and say, there's something wrong. My girlfriend looked at me and asked me if I was okay, after a couple of tournaments where things weren't going well, coming off of a season that I had bowled so well on. And, I sat there with tears in my eyes and I told her, I'm not okay. I don't know why. And that was when I reached out to you, and I'm like, this is what's going on. I don't know what else I need to do, but you're the person that I know I can turn to that can fix this and can help me get me back on the path that I need to be on and being the elite athlete that I am. And having that individual work, like I said, I don't know that I'm sitting here talking to you about winning in Sweden had I not done that, and had I not gotten that one-on-one work with you, because it's only transpired to be even better. When we talk about other things that other players are doing and we see things like, man, they're not doing that. That's why they're losing, or that's why they're not performing how they want to. And so we find all those different things and to make myself better, and to make, for any athlete that's listening to this, like when you have that and you see the things and the things that you're doing that have helped you, and you see other players or competitors not doing certain things, and you're like, wow, that really does make a difference, because they're not doing it and they're not performing well.
It's like my friend Sean Casey, who was just recently the hitting coach of the New York Yankees, MLB Network analyst, right? Lifetime 300 hitter, about a 15-year or so Major League Baseball career. He'd always say, Kaner, if you're not working with a mental performance coach at the highest level of any sport, it's like going to a gunfight with a butter knife. And we want to bring the bazooka. We want to bring the bazooka. And part of that bazooka is also having the ammunition to put in that bazooka. So I want to kind of shift, if we can, into some of the strategies, processes, let's call them, that you use, AJ, and have you kind of wrap on some of these tools that we use that other listeners of this will be familiar with. But talk about like the success checklist in the app that we used, called Habit Share, to really be intentional about your process.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked a little bit, that it's during the season, I'm very intentional about all the things that we do. And Habit Share has been great because it keeps me accountable. I can go into the app and I can see the things that, okay, did I listen to Mental Performance Daily podcast? Did I read the Daily Dominator? Did I read the Daily Stoic? Did I do my stretches and my mobility work before I left? Did I listen to the Mental Performance Mastery thing for bowling the night before? Am I doing my breathing before we start competition? Because that was a big thing. I didn't have that in there before, and we added that. And sitting down before competition and having that 6-2-5 breathing, or 6-2-8 breathing, sorry, has been huge, especially in moments where I'm kind of like, all right, we're getting down to the nitty gritty of it. I need to get back present, so I do that. Having the one word focus, before I start competition. I finish practice, I see everything that, that I need to do for that tournament. And I go to my Habit Share and check and see, okay, did I have that one word? Do I have my 3 keys, for this tournament, to make sure that I'm focused and intentional on, to set myself up for success for the week. So doing that. And also during the season, and one thing that I need to get better outside of the season is planning my day every single day, having my days done the night before. I was great about that during the season, and it helped me tremendously on getting everything set up week to week, because we're traveling, from different city to different city, in a different bowling center, in a different environment every single week. And planning my days out really helped with keeping me intentional and keeping me disciplined on what I needed to do every day, especially as the year goes on, when your time is being pulled from many different directions.
Yeah. Wow, man. Dude, there's so much you want to unpack there. You talked about one word focus, 6-2-8 breathing, the 3 keys to keep it simple, planning your days in advance, right? Planning tomorrow, tonight. As you did that during the season, AJ, let's just unpack about that, because I feel like that's one aspect of mental performance that a lot of professional athletes overlook, is the importance of plan tomorrow, tonight. And before your head hits the pillow, you make an agenda per se for your day. So when you wake up, you know exactly what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and you're able to play offense instead of defense. How has that plan tomorrow, tonight, how did that help you during the season?
It helped me tremendously. I was up until we really started getting into that part, I was kind of the person that knew of all the things I had to do and kind of kept them up here, and never really put them down. And I, just kind of went with the flow. If there was changes in schedules or whatever, I just kind of went with the flow. When I started planning tonight, I was able to implement the things that I knew I had scheduled already and the time that was dedicated to those. And that was the time that was dedicated for that. And that was all that I gave for it. And then there's things obviously that, you can't plan for, whether it's, what you're doing in between blocks or what you're going to do when the day is over with, where you're going to grab dinner or, what those things look like. So you have to be a little bit flexible with it. And especially with bowling, but the night before I was able to go in and put in all the things that I was doing and the times that I was doing it, so that I knew that I had a schedule set and I was intentional about what I was doing during the day, and so that I could be intentional about what I was doing while I was competing. And like I said, we have our time being pulled in many different directions. And so having that it just kept me disciplined and gave me a freer mind space every time that I showed up to the bowling center to compete, knowing that, I wasn't worried about, what I was doing later, because I already had it scheduled. I already have it down. And the night before, it makes me look at something and say, okay, this is the time that I have to get up, and so that I have the time to get the things done that I need to get done before I can compete and get my body ready and get my mind ready. And then when I'm done, these are the things that I need to get done before I go to bed, so that I can start winding down and give myself the ample amount of time to sleep beforehand. Because before I was kind of going with the flow. It was, if I had to bowl later, I was, I would go to bed later. Or if I had to bowl early, I got to make sure to go to bed early. And it was always inconsistent. When I started doing this, things became a lot more consistent for me and gave me a much freer headspace to work with.
AJ, would you agree with the statement that the more consistent you are in your life outside of the bowling center, the more consistent you're going to perform inside the bowling center?
100%. You can't say it any better than that.
And I think that's true for the more consistent you are off the golf course, the more consistent you are on, the more consistent you are outside of the baseball stadium, the more consistent you are when you're in, right? And I think that consistency really gives you a different level of confidence, which then shows up in terms of you bringing an edge to your performance and able to compete at a higher level. Just talk about, AJ, the mental performance work that you've done, right? The difference in the confidence that you have when you step up to the line, right, to bowl. How has the mental performance, the preparation? I mean, everything that you're listing here, this is incredible. The amount that you're able to retain and what you're able to speak about, and it's because you do it every day. But what type of confidence does that give you to have that type of process?
You talked about it. Confidence is nothing that you feel; it's what you do. And by doing all of these things and setting myself up every day before I compete, it gives me what I like to call it quiet confidence. Because I'm not bragging about these things. I'm not showing up every day and saying, "Hey guys, guess what I did today?" Look at what I'm doing. These are all the things that I'm doing because I feel like I have to do them at an elite level to be an elite athlete. And when I get through these things every single day, it's giving me that quiet confidence to show up every single day at the center to compete and telling myself, I got this no matter what's going on. I could be bowling bad. And, there are times that I've let it spiral, and I get it out in a very, not the greatest way, but I know that no matter what, I have it and I can figure it out and get through it because I have set myself up for success prior to, because I've done all these things and gone through all this stuff before I even get to the bowling center. And it makes me feel like I have that edge. I have that preparation edge. It makes me feel like I'm one of the hardest workers in the room, no matter what, because I'm going through things each and every day that I don't know that the other guys are. I don't know what they're doing, but I know what I'm doing. And what I'm doing is just giving myself as much preparation and as much things to set myself up for success no matter what.
It's awesome, man. AJ, I got about 3 more questions, man. I could sit here and rap with you all day. Want to talk about mental imagery, the importance of you taking time out of your day to close your eyes and visualize yourself walking into that center with big body language and competing at the level you want to compete at. Maybe the imagery you would do like in your hotel before a tournament, or maybe in the center before you start bowling, or then imagery that you're doing when you're actually got the ball on your hand and you're getting ready to throw, and you're seeing the pitch, you're seeing the shot before you throw it. Talk about that visualization or that mental imagery, like outside the center, and then what you do inside of the bowling center.
Yeah, of course. So we kind of talked about that with, with laying down in bed. I always found myself kind of struggling with getting myself to fall asleep, after a competition or traveling or whatever. And so the mental imagery part of it was listening to the video on YouTube that you have for bowling. And it's more of a meditation / imagery thing, because you're having to visualize all the things that you're going to be doing that next competition or that next day, as well as encompassing that with the breathing. And it brought me a sense of calmness, because I was already seeing what I was doing before I went to it the next day. And I was getting my body to kind of calm down and allow myself to relax, to know that you got it. Everything's good. And then during competition, when I was talking about my process, that closing my eyes and breath with my hand over the air, part of what I'm doing when I'm closing my eyes is seeing myself throw a shot with flawless execution, how I want the ball to feel off my hand, how I want it to look, how I want the ball to look going down the lane, where I'm trying to hit, all those things. And obviously seeing, all 10 pins fall down, that part of the process brings in that imagery part every single frame. Every frame that I close my eyes and put my hand over the air, I'm visualizing what I need to do for that shot. If there's an adjustment that I need to make, I close my eyes and I take that breath. And when I open my eyes, I know that I've already seen what I need to execute for that frame before I even do it.
So good, man. Dude, unbelievable. So much we can unpack here. And AJ, I think the next question for you would be for professional athletes, right? And we're going to have athletes of all levels and coaches of all levels listening to this podcast, but I want you to speak specifically to the people in your shoes, the professional athletes, the NHL hockey players, the Major League Baseball players, the other, maybe not the other bowlers on tour, because you want to keep the competitive edge on tour, but the PGA golfers, right? And as you're talking to professional athletes who maybe have not dabbled into mental performance, they're not working with a mental performance coach. You do, and you do intensely. What would you say to those other athletes that are looking to be the best version of themselves and get the most out of their career? What would you say to them about working with a mental performance coach, the importance of that?
Take the step. There's no other simple way to put it other than you need to take that step. You need to take that leap. No matter what level of competition you're at, you could be at the highest and have already accomplished so many things, but there's still things that you're missing. And it took me a while to realize that. I was one of those people that I would, listen to everything that, you were doing. And I would read about it, whatever, but I don't know that I was fully all in on it, because I was like, well, it's bowling. I've done bowling my whole life. And, I see these other guys that are bowling that I know that are winning at a high level, and, they've done some things that I haven't done yet. And I know that they're not doing a lot of these things. So I kind of felt like, well, if the best in the world are the guys that are winning more than I am or aren't doing these, then, I can navigate it without no problem. And what I learned and what I found out was that I don't need to necessarily worry about that, because I knew that I needed it. And it took me kind of being at one of the lowest points for me to realize that. And I wish I had started it sooner. I wish I would have reached out to you, that month after you came to Team USA camp and said, hey, we need to do this one-on-one for the long term. And I wish it wouldn't have gotten to that low point because I did need it. And high level athletes of all sports, you do need it. Take that lead, take that step.
It's like you work with a strength coach. You know, to make sure your body's moving the right way. You work with a bowling coach, probably multiple guys, whether it's Bakes, whether it's Calderon. You've got a team of guys around you to make sure that you're moving the way you want to move, that your ball's doing what you want it to do, but you don't have somebody necessarily on your team until now that's helping you with the thought process and the 6 inches behind all of that and kind of the overall life routines and architecture of how it all fits together. And I think for any baseball players listening to this, look, you got a pitching coach, you got a hitting coach, you got a strength coach, but who's helping you with the 6 inches between the ears that control the 6 feet below? And at the highest level, PBA, PGA, NHL, NFL, Major League Baseball, UFC, the difference is the mental game. It is the missing link. And AJ
100%.
Johnson, you've done an incredible job today of uncovering that missing link for athletes, not just on the PBA tour, but in all sports and really in all aspects of life to be able to take and use what you've talked about. I mean, you covered the fear of failure, having something to go to, the importance of routines, moving from comparison into competition, the importance of physical triggers to help you flip the switch in your mindset, whether it's a shower, whether it's a jersey, the importance of a daily success checklist for optimal performance. You said confidence, it's not a feeling, it's what you do. You discussed mental imagery, the 1-word focus, 6 to 8 breathing, 3 keys to keep it simple, planning your days in advance. It's separations from preparation, getting 1% better, the importance of breathing and evaluation, recognizing signal lights. I mean, you can't fake chicken skin, man, and goosebumps. I got goosebumps everywhere because of how much you just delivered after 2 weeks after, 3 weeks after winning, you know, a major in bowling in one of the biggest events that you can compete in. So AJ, the last question for you is for all of our listeners, man, they want to jump on the AJ Johnson juice train and they want to follow you. Where can they follow you on Instagram or Twitter? Where can people get a hold of you or be able to follow what you're doing?
Absolutely. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everything is at AJ_Johnson PBA. I run everything. So I appreciate everybody that does engage with me and follows and sees everything that I have going on. I post everything that's going on in my life, whether it's bowling, whether it's my girlfriend and I getting ready to have a baby boy come next year. And I couldn't be any more excited about that. So all outlets, follow me, take this journey with me because it's only getting better. And I can't wait to continue to do more because I took that step and I know there's more things that Kaner and I are going to dive into to get even better.
100%. And if you're a high school athletic director or you're a high school or college coach and you're looking for somebody to speak to your team about mental performance, somebody who's in the battle, doing it at the highest level and what they do, reach out to AJ Johnson. That's at AJ_Johnson PBA on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. You can't miss them. AJ, last thing here is I'm going to give a shout out to Mookie Betts, right? He's one of the best baseball players in the world, also one of the top bowlers in the world. And hey, Mook, when you come back to Arizona for spring training, we're going to partner up. It's going to be it's going to be me and AJ against you and Kike, and we're going to see who comes home with the Arizona Bowling Championship. Kike and Mookie against AJ and Cain for the Dominate the Day PBA Championship out of Arizona. Calderon, close the doors, get the building ready because it's coming. We're blowing the roof off.
I love it. Let's go. Let's go.
Awesome. Pay-per-view only. AJ Johnson, thanks for being here on Mental Performance Mastery Podcast, and congrats on the success and most importantly, the continued success today. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, Kaner. I appreciate it, man.